U.S. is starting to wise up on Chinese investments. It's been cracking down by closing loopholes, but not all the loopholes have been closed, which means China could get U.S. trade secrets. Welcome to Chine Non Censurée. I'm Chris Chappell. The U.S. is finally wising up on Chinese investment. Better late than never. This feels like your grandparents finally learning how to unplug and plug back in the Wi-Fi router. Shouldn't have taken this long to figure it out, but glad they got there eventually. After years of letting China buy up sensitive U.S. technology, property, and companies, the U.S. government is finally putting its foot down. In 2018, Trump signed the Foreign Investment Risk Review Modernization Act, or FIRMA. This changed how the Committee on Foreign Investments, or CFIUS, screened investments in the U.S. for national security issues. Before, CFIUS could only review foreign investments if they resulted in a controlling stake. Now, CFIUS can review any investment. A controlling stake gives an investor a say in how the company or fund is managed. You know how some Uber passengers tell the driver what routes to take and how fast or slow they should be going? It's kind of like that, but if the passenger was paying a huge portion of the driver's rent. Knock over pedestrians on the sidewalk, you're the boss. Then later, when Biden got into office, he ordered CFIUS to look at all investments that affect critical aspects of the U.S. supply chain or Americans' personal data and several other things. As you might imagine, this has not gone over very well with Wall Street, which loves Chinese money more than Snoop Dogg loves marijuana. And Snoop Dogg loves Mary Jane. Now, I'm no doctor, but I would say Wall Street's love for Chinese money looks like an addiction. Wall Street now stands as an increasingly lonely voice, arguing for more engagement with China. This was going on even as China was taking a wrecking ball to its economy with its zero-COVID policy, committing genocide against an ethnic minority, and selling the organs of political prisoners for profit. Find someone that loves you the way Wall Street loves Chinese money. They're ride or die, and the people that die are political prisoners. Back when Trump was considering FIRMA, Wall Street opposed him. They went to bat for China and tried to water down the bill. Private equity firms wanted an exception for, you guessed it, private equity. And unfortunately, their lobbying was successful. I'll tell you more after the break. Welcome back. While the U.S. has been shoring up its defenses against malign foreign investors, there are still cracks in the walls. Private equity and venture capital firms were able to get an exemption granted in FIRMA for limited partners. That means that if a foreign entity becomes a limited partner in, say, a private equity fund, CFIUS doesn't have any jurisdiction over it. Should have seen something like this coming. Finding loopholes is what Wall Street does best. Kind of like what Snoop Dogg does best is baking with Martha Stewart. According to the Foundation for Defense of Democracies, this is a huge liability. Limited partners don't get a say in management, which is the excuse they use for not getting scrutinized by the U.S. government. But they could still theoretically get access to sensitive data. And the type of investments that private equity firms are involved in means that Chinese companies could get access to critical technology, stuff that could affect national security. Portfolio details could hold national economic or intelligence value. But I'm sure Americans have nothing to worry about. I mean, if powerful people in America are known for anything, it's being super careful with keeping classified documents secure. This is especially concerning with venture capital. That's when people invest in a startup. Some of these startups are on the cutting edge of innovation. Foreign investors could be individuals, but they could also be sovereign wealth funds, which are controlled by a country's government. For example, the China Investment Corporation, or CIC. At $1.3 trillion US, it's the largest sovereign wealth fund in the world. CIC has said repeatedly that it separates commercial activities from governmental functions and makes its investment decisions independently. which I believe about as much as a cat saying the plant jumped off the counter by itself. CSE's board of directors includes representatives from the Chinese government, like the State Administration for Foreign Exchange, the Ministry of Finance, the National Development and Reform Commission, the Ministry of Commerce, and the People's Bank of China. Unfortunately for CIC, its own words are blowing its cover. CIC's Deputy General Manager, Chi Bin, has explained that cooperation with developed economies is to be leveraged to obtain advanced technology. CIC getting intel through owning parts of individual U.S. companies is one thing, but it's more than that. CIC is also partnering with large investment companies like Goldman Sachs, Japan's Nomura Holdings, and France's BNP Paribas. CIC's Deputy General Manager Chi Bin has talked about leveraging these partnerships for win-win mutual benefit of Chinese companies. Somehow I'm getting the sense that win-win has a different meaning in China. I think in English we would call this short-term win for long-term loss. I'll give you my money and you give me your trade secrets. So what can the U.S. do about this liability? The Foundations for Defense of Democracy suggest that the U.S. government close the loophole that allows Chinese companies to invest in firms as limited partners without being approved by CFIUS. U.S. regulators could also focus on restricting the type of information that's shared with foreign investors. So U.S. companies could still get foreign investment, but this would at least limit how many of their trade secrets get stolen. That'll hopefully tide Wall Street over while they try kicking their Chinese money addiction. And China Uncensored would not be possible without support from viewers like you. Our main source of support is directly from viewers who contribute to us through the crowdfunding website Patreon. Those are the fans I call the China Uncensored 50 Cent Army, who join us in the fight against the Chinese Communist Party. As a thank you to them, I answer their questions on the show. Full Name asks, so you mentioned corn. Favorite song? Or don't want to talk about politics? Well, Full Name, let me put it this way. Corn has a lot of songs. It's very hard to choose a favorite. It wouldn't be inaccurate to say, I can't think of one song that's better than all the others. Thanks for your question. And to everyone else watching, be like Full Name and support us through Patreon with as little as $1 per episode. As a perk, I'll answer some of your questions on the show. Link is below. China Uncensored would not exist without your support. Once again, I'm Chris Chappell. See you next time.